Alright, so guys, let's begin. Last lecture, we had started our discussion with interfaces, right? So we discussed about interfaces, few important points. Can you quickly read this, the first line? Any doubts? No. Can you read this point? Next. Okay. And then after, correct? Now let us continue from here further and we'll start taking lot of examples on interfaces. So before we start with further examples on interfaces, one, I'll come back to this example drawback of inheritance later, but let's continue further. I've already taken this separate example for it. Okay, so we are going to start with important point. All variables given in the program are final and static. Now what do you mean by that? Observe here. Whenever you're creating any variable in an interface, example, let's delete this part, right click, new, create a class A. Now here, I'm going to now convert this to an interface. Whenever you create any variable in an interface, it cannot be non-static. There is no concept of non-static variables here. The variables that you create here is by default final and static only. What do you mean by that? If I now write int, if I now write here int max underscore val, whenever you give final static variable, give it in uppercase, max underscore, and use an underscore. This is the convention for final variables. We don't use here camel casing. We will use snake casing here. So max underscore val, and you see there is an error. Because you know that if a variable is final and static, initialization is mandatory. I've not used final and static keyword. That's optional. Even if I don't write this, by default the variable is final and static. Int min underscore val. And by default, it will be final, okay, and static. Even if you don't write this. Since it is final and static, if you don't store any value, it will give you an error. So storing value becomes mandatory. Is this point clear? Now how to access this? So create here a class B, and then we are going to now write here implement. Okay, we need not do that. Now they are non subclasses. Since it is static, I can directly use the interface name a dot maxval, and I can write here syso a dot minval. Fine. So now when I run this, I have 100 and then I have what? 0. Is this point clear, everyone? Yes? Any doubts, questions, queries? No. Okay. So please read this here. All variables by default in an interface are final and what? Static. All variables by default in an interface are final and static. Observe maxval, minval. They are final and static. Now here, in order to access that, I can use the interface name and access. Is this point clear? Everyone, did you understand this? Please tell me. Online students, are you all clear with this point? Shall we continue further? Yes. So there are non-static variable concept you cannot have an interface. Why? Because an object of interface can never be created. Keep this in mind. If you're trying to create an object of interface, you cannot create. If I now write A1 is equal to new A, you see there is an error. An object of interface you cannot create. Why? Because incomplete methods, you cannot load that inside an object. An interface has incomplete abstract methods. Abstract methods cannot go to object. Object creations for that reason is not allowed. Since you cannot create objects, non-static variables are not allowed here. Is this clear? Okay, why non-static variables are not allowed? Because object creation is not possible here. But you can create a reference variable of interface. Keep that in mind. This I can do it. I've created a reference variable. There is no problem. But when I create an object, there is an error. Object creations are not allowed, but reference variable creation can be done. So let's now go back to the notes. Read this here, this line. Right? Read this line. All variables in an interface by default are final and static. Is this clear? Yes. Next. An object of interface cannot be created because objects cannot have incomplete methods in it. I'll talk about loosely coupled concept bit later. Okay, but most of the points are clear now. Let's continue further. Now we'll start taking many more examples which is related to what? Interfaces. So let's start with that. So we are going to take some inheritance concepts here now. How we can do inheritance from interface to interface, interface to class, how multiple inheritance on interfaces can be done. We'll start looking at these examples one by one. But there is a note here. Very carefully observe the note. Whenever you are doing inheritance class to class, we will use extends keyword. Whenever inheritance is done class to class, we will be using what? Extends keyword. Interface to interface, we will be using implements keyword. And whenever you are doing inheritance, that is from interface to class, it is implements. Interface to interface extends, class to class extends, interface to interface extends, interface to class implements. Keep this in mind. Okay, now let's start with our very first example. Okay, so the first example that I will take here is something like this now. Let's delete this all and let's firstly create one interface A. Just right click, go to new and create here one interface A. Now this interface has one method, public void test1. Right click, go to new, create an interface B and let's write here public void and test2. Now you need to now keep this in mind. From interface to interface, I'm going to do inheritance. So I need to use here extends keyword. Do you agree with that? How many incomplete methods are present in B now? Tell me. How many incomplete methods are present in B? Yes, you can have different package. Huh? Two. Which are the two methods present in B? Test1 and test2. Now let's go here. Let's create a class C. Go to new, create a class C. Now once you go to class C, guys, we will have to inherit. We'll have to inherit from an interface to class. Which keyword? How many methods are inherited? How many methods are inherited? Two methods. Press Ctrl 1, add unimplemented method. Right. Observe here now. I'm going to write here now SYSO1. It was not audio problem. I was on a phone call. Now, let's write here 2. Now, we are going to write here a main method. Create an object of C. Create an object of C. Then you write C1 dot test1, C1 dot test2. And now when you right click and do a run as Java application, observe, you got the output. Did you understand this example 1? Everyone, please see. The same example is given here. Slowly observe. Yes, able to understand? Here the values are different from test 1, from test 2. So this is going to print from test 1 and test 2. Let's take the next example now. Now we'll look at how multiple inheritance can be done here. So what I'll do is, I'll firstly start with an interface. I have interface A and B. Let me change this also to an interface. And here I will write extends A comma B. Observe now. How many methods are inherited to C? How many methods are inherited? From A, one method is inherited. Which is the method inherited from A? Test 1. From B, test 2. Now since it is interface, you are inheriting incomplete methods, but since it is interface, still you can keep those methods incomplete here. Since it's an interface, still you can get those incomplete methods and keep it here. Is this part clear? All of you? Any doubts, questions, queries? No? So are we doing multiple inheritance? Yes. Now very important rule, when you are doing multiple inheritance, here A and B, this A and B, let's assume they are interfaces, right? Copy, paste this here, and this is an interface. Correct? A and B is an interface. Now we are inheriting the members from A and B to C. Currently C is also what? An interface. But importantly, even if this C is a class, there is no problem. Okay, as long as your parent is interfaces, the child can be class or interface. This child C can be class or interface, it does not matter. Because here diamond problem will not arise. Why, sir? Observe. Now, what is diamond problem? Let's say I have interface A, interface B, and interface C. And let's say this D can be a class or interface. It can be an interface or it can be a class. Now, I'm assuming that in this A, there is a test method. So you're inheriting from A to B and B to D, A to C and C to D. What are you inheriting? Test. Now this test method is complete or incomplete? Incomplete. This is incomplete because A is interface, it's incomplete. You are inheriting incomplete from A to B, and from B to D, again the method inherited is incomplete. There is no logic. Again, when you are inheriting from A to C, C to D, it's incomplete. When method is incomplete, logic is only not there, then where is the ambiguity? Ambiguity is when the method that you're inheriting has a logic, and that logic is coming from where? Now this particular method is incomplete. There is no logic at all in it. So there's no question of diamond problem here. Though D is a class or interface, the question of diamond problem will not arise because you're inheriting incomplete methods. Did you understand this, online students? Online students? Yes? Everyone clear with this part? Everyone clear with this part? Okay. See here now, we have A and B. We are doing multiple inheritance. There is no problem. Huh. Huh. So firstly, this kind of designing we should not do. However, it will work, right? But again, when it is coming from C and D, it is getting overridden. So ultimately, only one incomplete method is present. Though you take the flow from A to B, then B to D, A to C, C to D. But after overriding, the test method that you see here now is what? Single one with no logic. But understanding the flow from where it is coming, manually we will have to trace. In the ID, we will have to manually trace that. Got it? But ambiguity not there. The reason for it is there is no logic. But strictly speaking, this kind of designing should not be done. Got it? This is a wrong approach of writing the code itself, though it works. Why do you want to do that and create confusions? Yes or no? You will take that method from one flow. Why do you want to take it from two flows and ultimately result in one method? Makes no sense. But when we are writing the code, we have to be careful, and such scenarios we should not execute. Is this clear, guys? Okay. Now let's continue further. If we do multiple inheritance on a class, then its parents should be interface only. Now notice I have this interface A. Let's go back. This interface A, which has test1 method, interface B, test2 method. Now this C can be a class or interface. But because it's a class, we'll have to use here implements keyword. Now press Ctrl 1 and add the method. Now observe, let's go here, SYSO, let's write down from test 2. Let's copy, go back here, paste it from test 3 or test 1, sorry. Now let's write here main method. C1 is equal to new C. Let's write C1 dot test 1, C1 dot test 2. There you go. Right click, run as Java application. Everybody got it? Did you understand this program, students? Did you all get this program? Yes? You can keep doing that inheritance. Again, you can inherit C to what D. Whatever your project requirement is, accordingly you will keep doing that. Yes, you can inherit the members of C, but when you inherit now, then test 1 and test 2 are inherited. Got it? That to what? D. And then in D you can add more methods. If you inherit C in another class, if we inherit C in another class, we can use interface. No. From class to interface inheritance cannot be done. See, inheritance from interface to class is okay. Because interface is incomplete, class is complete. Can you take complete method from a class, inherit to interface and make it incomplete? Firstly, why are you doing it? Why do you want to take a complete method and make it incomplete? What logic does it make? Think about it. Logic is in complete method. Interface is forcing a class to complete that method. Will you ever do this? A student comes to my class, he has full knowledge, and after taking my classes, he will lose his knowledge. He became abstract, he became incomplete. Doesn't make sense. It is the abstract student who comes to my class and then he becomes complete. That is the meaning. Did you understand this? Everyone? Yes? No? And why will you do that? First of all, this logic itself is wrong. From class to interface. Okay. Now let's continue further. Now let us go ahead further, and now we will look at, can we perform, see Prince, either you go ahead or you stay with us. या बहुत आगे चले जाओ तुम. These are all further concepts. See, I will not pick the concepts like this in between the topics. This causes disturbances. Right? If you notice further in the notes, that topic will be there, which we are talking about. Got it? So don't go ahead of the concept. Right? You have to understand. आपका दिमाग वहीं पे होना चाहिए जहां पे मैं सिखा रहा हूं. अगर आपका दिमाग पीछे चल रहा है या दिमाग आगे चल रहा है और साथ में नहीं चल रहा है तो प्रॉब्लम होगा. Yes, please concentrate here. Now, on a class, can we perform extents and implements together? On a class, can I perform extents and implements together? Please tell me. Now, this is yet another thing that we can do it on a class. Imagine now, here, here, I have now one that happens to be a class. Let's go here. Let's go here. This interface B, I will make it as a class. And I have now a complete method in it. Understand the question properly from test 2. And then I also have an interface. Now my question is this. The question is now, I have a class here. I have a class here. Okay. Now this class here is D, example. And here B is an interface. What is B here? B is an interface. And then what you see here, C, that happens to be now a class. That happens to be what? A class. Now when you're inheriting from an interface or a class, you're inheriting from an interface or a class onto a class. Both can I do it? If you inherit from interface to this class D, we will have to use which keyword? Implements. And if you're inheriting from class to class, which keyword will you use? So the question is this now. Can I use implements and extends both on the same class? Answer is yes. I can do that. Are you understanding now? I can do that. But whenever you are doing that, there is one catch here. You cannot use implements first. You have to always use extends first, followed by implements. Are you understanding? If you are interchanging this, then it will not work. If I'm interchanging, there is an error on the extends keyword. Always you have to use extends first and then implements. Now extends B, test 2 method has no problem because that is complete. But this incomplete method that you're inheriting, that is where the problem is. Yes, let's write here from test 1. From test 1. Let's write down main method. Let's write C1 is equal to new C. Let's write C1 dot test 1. C1 dot test 2. Did you understand this example? Yes. But now you can write any number of implements interfaces. A comma, D comma, E comma, any number you write. But here it has to be only one class. Because class to class inheritance is only multi-level. This is only multi-level. It cannot be multiple. But C to implements can be multiple. So you can have any number of interfaces added here now. Did you all get this point? Please tell me. Yes? Please tell me. Okay. Now I have a question. See why I don't take the topics when you ask me some questions ahead. Now let me ask you one question now. Okay. Question is, can I develop static incomplete method in an interface? Let's see how many people will answer this now. Tell me quickly. Can I write static incomplete method in an interface? Shubham is telling no. Prince, you answer now. Let's see what Prince will answer now. Prince Kumar, what do you say? Can I write static incomplete method? Prince Kumar. Static incomplete method. Huh? I can write static incomplete method. Think about it. Apply logic. I've given you some important points about static earlier. Can we inherit static method? Huh? Can we inherit static method? No. Then if it is static incomplete method, you can never inherit. Then can I override in the class? No. If overriding cannot happen, then why are you creating static incomplete method? You cannot create static incomplete method. Are you understanding? See, this is very important rule to understand. The method is non-static, okay. Make it static. Make it static. What do you see here? Because you cannot inherit static method. If inheritance cannot happen, can I override and complete in a class? So error. Is this clear, everyone? Now observe. Next, quickly here. Can I develop static incomplete method in an interface? This is interview question. We cannot inherit static incomplete method and override. Hence, incomplete static methods are not allowed in an interface. Is this clear? Now observe here. I have public interface A. Fine. I have public static void test2. It is static and hence there is an error. Is this part clear? All of you? Yes? Okay. Now coming to the next question. Read this. So this is a question you are asking me, Prince. Okay? What question you are asking me? You are asking me in an interface a method can only be. Read this. What is the point? In an interface, a method can only be public or default. It cannot be private or protected. Why? Why it cannot be private? Think logically. Because you cannot inherit private methods. If I make a method private, can I inherit private method? No. Then how do I override this one? How do I override? If I cannot inherit, I cannot complete this method in a class. I cannot override. If I make it public, yes. If I make it default, yes. But now tell me, why not protected? Why not protected? Protected are inherited, right? Why not protected? Because public and default covers all the cases. Are you understanding? Just with public and default, if it is default, I can access in same package, and if it is public, I can access in a different package. So everything is covered. So protected, if I use, it's a duplicacy. So they decided to keep only default and public. Private and protected access specifiers are not allowed. This is again an interview question. Is this clear? Sometimes basic questions like they'll ask. Why error? Tell me. Protected. Why error? Why no error? Why no error? Same way, your interface can also be only public or default. You cannot make an interface private or protected. This is not allowed. Is this part clear? Everyone? Now further, I will talk about marker interfaces. But for now, I'll just give you the definition of it. What is a marker interface? This is again an interview topic. An empty interface. An interface which is empty, which has nothing in it. An empty interface is called as a marker interface. What is a marker interface? An empty interface is termed to be a marker interface. Okay. So now notice there is nothing in it. Then such interfaces we will call that as marker interface. The next interview question will start. Why do you want to create an empty interface? Give me an example why marker interfaces are required. So I will cover this during serialization concept in Java. Okay. Is this part clear, all of you? Yes. An object of an interface cannot be created. Reference variable of interface can be created. You agree with that? Object creation error, reference variable no error. What are marker interfaces? Now, the next part we will begin with Java 8 features. Basically, basic explanation I will do now. But the depth understanding of it, I will do it in my advanced classes. So in Java 8, they introduced lot of new features. And those features are default keyword, stream API, optional classes, right? Functional interfaces like this. some important concepts were introduced in your Java version 8. And this is a very popular interview topic. In many interviews, I've seen students getting this question, Java 8 features, and have you used that in your projects? They'll directly start asking questions, have you used these things in your projects? Fine. So let's understand this now quickly here, right? When we are talking about Java 8 features, the first one is default keyword. So what is this default keyword? Till Java 7, in an interface, you could not create a complete method. This was not allowed. But in version 8 of Java, they introduced a default keyword, not default access specifier, default keyword. And moment I add the default keyword, complete method creations are now allowed. So using a default keyword, you can create complete methods in an interface like this. You can develop complete methods in what? An interface. So let's write here 1 and let us write here 2. Now this interface methods are non-static. Non-static. I cannot create object of interface and access because object of interface cannot be created. So how do I access this now? I'll go to my class B and let's do one thing. In class B, this time when I inherit these methods to B, listen to the question carefully and answer. When I inherit this method to B, will I get error or there will be no error? There will be no error. Why no error? Because when you are inheriting complete methods to class, obviously there will not be any error. So it all depends on the interface. If there are only complete methods, you see there is no error. Because the class requires complete methods. Methods are complete that you are inheriting. There is no problem. There is nothing to worry about it. Is this clear? B1 dot test 1, B1 dot test 2. And now when you run this, observe 1 and 2. Is this part clear? All of you, did you understand this part? Any questions, queries, do you have it? Please tell me. Any questions, queries, do you have it? Please tell me. If no questions, we can look at the next example. Read this carefully. Do you agree with this? Now look at this example. Will it work? Yes. What is the output of the program? From test 1. Very good. Now see, the next example, I will develop a complete and incomplete method. So when it is incomplete, don't keep the default keyword, right? Now you notice there is an error. Can you tell me why there is an error? Because of this incomplete method inherited to class, there is an error. Press Ctrl 1, add unimplemented method, SYSO. Let's print here. Okay, let's print here 2. Let's do that. Did you understand this example, guys? Observe, it's printing 1 and 2. Can you see that now? From test 1 and here it is printing. Look at this example carefully. Observe this example carefully. Observe the example carefully. Any doubts? For complete methods, you can. You can develop, since Java 8, complete static methods are allowed. We'll see that further. Everybody got this part? Yes. So should we stop here for today? Enough for today? Yes, sure. Do you want to practice this much and come back next day? Practice Java codes properly, whatever I'm covering. Then during advanced class, understanding will be much better. Okay? Everyone, I'll stop the class here. See you again the next class on Monday.